This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Love it.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Continue.
So just clarify that a little bit, that whatever that statement was, what challenge are people in Easthampton facing with, I don't know, town services or town, something like that.
So in terms of the grant, like that's right, but I don't want to just know about town stuff. I do want to know about other stuff.
Right.
But I do want to narrow it down. But so
But I guess it's nice to know what would we do if it was something not related to Easthampton services or?
I would refer them to other resources.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, anything.
All right. That makes sense.
Anything could be related to Easthampton services if we decided to make a service, right? I mean, right. It's a potential service, right? Like we can decide like what as a larger community, right? What problems we want to try to solve and make, right? So it doesn't have to be a service that's currently provided.
I was just thinking, like, what if somebody was having trouble finding the right medical person for their issue? And then I thought, well, we could make sure they have referrals. So we can still, even if it's not the town's responsibility, we could still be helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it does seem like a lot of the feedback, if I recall, it was around mobility, transportation. It was also about the need for connection and community. And some of the feedback was about making sure that public events are accessible for people with disabilities. And some of the feedback was also saying that there might be a need for events that are specifically for people with disabilities. Like I recall there were a few responses that were saying like, I would love to participate in like a canoeing or a going on a thing, but I have physical disability or mobility impairment. And if there was a group of people so I could know that when I go here, that there's going to be accommodation for me, or I'm not going to be judged or feel out of place. And some of those things might be related to city services and some of them may not be. Maybe they're more related to outside groups. But anyways, those are some of the thoughts that come to mind.
Yeah, you had an insight about the question about disability-specific events, about that the responses fell into kind of two categories. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, I do. Let me pull it up a little, or if I can pull up my data a little, how I organized it. So, yeah, I remember on that question, I thought it was really interesting to look at what people responded when they were given the ability to write like a free open response. And I noticed that there were a number of the responses were about wanting to feel like a part of the greater community, and they wanted to feel like included in the events that were being put on. And yeah, this is related to what I kind of just said. But then also maybe a little bit less than half of the responses were talking about the accessibility and wanting to build connections with other people who are also disabled within the community. And about those ideas of like, when I go, I'd like to be able to have events that I can go to where I know in advance that it's going to be accommodating and I'm not going to feel out of place.
Yeah. So I guess oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I had written an email more than once, and I wrote another one earlier today because I'd like to make it, I've mentioned before, like some sort of city ordinance or rules, I don't know, where like you have to put the types of accessibility you are somewhere on your event somehow with like a, you know, with a phone number that people can call to clarify like what accessibility options you have. Because right now, I mean, that is what some people did say over the course of time. So, I mean, we'll see what they write back to me.
I'm curious too, and this question I might just be uninformed because I don't really know a whole lot, but I'm wondering if like how much partnership there is between other like neighboring communities as far as like if there are events that kind of are put on by, you know, different communities that are open or available or being promoted within Easthampton for as opportunities for people with disabilities. You know, because I'm just thinking like if for that person's one example of saying like he would like to go out on the Connecticut River or like in boating, but he has a mobility impairment and he would love it if there were like events that, you know, specific people like him. Well, there may not be like a ton of people like him in just Easthampton, but maybe when you look at like the greater area, there's creates more of a demand, and then you could.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what kind of partnerships or programming kind of exists like that.
Right. Well, there is All Out Adventures. That's a private organization. But are you familiar with them?
No, I've never heard of them.
Yeah. So it's a private organization that does like outdoor activities for people with disabilities, and they kind of go out of their way to kind of make sure to like figure out how to accommodate everyone, right? So it's right. So yeah, so they might have like a bicycle trip where people who need like special adaptive bicycles, like they have them, and you know they can bring along, you know, helpers and stuff like that. So a canoe trip might very well be something that they've done.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I was thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, the question that I was asking when I was looking at the data is like, what are kind of the themes, right? All these people are talking about their own experience, right? But what kind of ties them all together, right? And so, yeah, certainly like transportation, right? And transportation infrastructure in particular, right, was one of those things.
Yeah. I think one of the questions at hand, because we're really talking about a presentation to the council, is what can the city do better or differently?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, what can the city councilors do to help here? I have the feeling they'll want to help as long as we tell them what to do.
Well, I mean, some of them. Yes,
one of the issues we were talking about was making city council and other government meetings more accessible through technology. And I don't know if anything has been done to upgrade any of the meeting rooms for improved vision, hearing, or reading technologies, or, you know, to help people who need those.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
I think I remember hearing about, I don't think it was done, but about the not teleprompters, but like the technology they have now. Yeah, the captioning.
Well, I mean, we have that here. You can turn it on right from the bottom. You can turn on closed captioning. That's fine for, you know, hybrid meetings, because both the Zoom software and the Google software have that built in. But some questions were raised by people, I'm not sure if it was in the questionnaire or not, that it's not that accurate. And the accuracy varies, from application to application. But we had also been talking about installing assisted listening so that people with hearing aids could hear what's coming out of the microphones better.
Mhm.
And that requires something to give them that they put around their neck that integrates with their hearing aids.
Yeah, that could be good.
Yeah, and that's kind of a relatively easy thing because it's kind of a prepackaged, right? Kind of. I mean, it doesn't require a lot of thought or ongoing expense.
Well, so are we getting a little off the beaten path here? I mean, are we trying? We're trying to solve all the problems. I think right now the survey we're more focused on what are we going to present to the council, right, from this survey?
Good call.
So Eli, you put them into categories, right?
What's that?
You had put them into categories. All the written answers you put into categories?
Yeah, well, I broke them down and I put all the elements of them into categories because often one response would touch on a number of different things.
Can you list those? Are you able to do that? Is it accessible right now?
Do you have the email I sent about an hour ago?
I just can't take notes and run the meeting and look at my email. That's above my pay grade. So
okay. Gotcha. I understand. Let's see. So, let me open that up. So just give me a sec.
While he's looking, Paul, if you see that little box that says CC on the bottom of the screen in the center,
Yep.
if you push that, the captioning will automatically appear on your screen.
Yeah, I see it there.
Oh, I've got Eli's thing here. You mean sidewalks and crosswalks, accessibility of buildings, those categories, conditions of roads.
Yeah, that's the one.
Accessible parking, public restrooms. Oh, yeah, and the first one was accessibility related challenges. Yeah.
I mean, one thing we haven't addressed is that I don't know if there are accessible automatic doors at the U.S. Post Office in Easthampton.
There aren't. I'm constantly amazed by that.
Yeah, but what's her Mary reported back on that they're grandfathered in or something. They don't or doesn't count.
Yeah.
They don't need to.
They're heavy doors, and people are often carrying a lot of stuff.
It literally doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, I have it open.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah. It's a lot to read though. I don't know how much you want me to read.
The titles of the categories you made? Is that the same ones that Molly just read off?
Oh.
Is that what you were
Yeah. So okay, yeah. So for the survey question, what accessibility related challenges do you face on a day-to-day basis in Easthampton? The categories I found were sidewalks and crosswalks, accessibility of buildings, condition of roads, accessible parking, public transportation, public restrooms, and miscellaneous. And then I have stuff for some other questions. So there's, please describe difficulties you have with the Easthampton website. Hard to find stuff. confusing or inconvenient interface, info unavailable, compatibility problems, lack of accessibility features, outdated info, and miscellaneous.
All right, so all that should go to Kareen and IT, right? Because that's what Kelsey was like working on at the time.
Yeah, although, see, the problem is they changed the website in the middle of while we were doing the survey, so it's not clear if it refers to the old website or the new website.
Aye, aye.
Yeah. Okay, and then we have a question: which public or community events do you have difficulty finding accessibility information about, and what kind of accessibility information are you looking for? And the categories I have are no specific events, mobility accommodations, parking, events themselves, sensory accessibility, government meetings, concerts, Millside Park.
All right, so that's one that we're writing
Parks,
to the,
Parks and Rec events and miscellaneous. All right, and for the question, if Easthampton were to undertake a single large project to improve the life of disabled people, regardless of cost, what would you want that project to be? And the categories were sidewalks and roadways, buildings open to public, parking, public transportation, housing, deaf accessibility, inclusive/accessible playground, and miscellaneous. By the way, these are not like all equally weighted, right? Some of them had many responses,
Right.
and some of them had like just one.
I remember on that topic, what I added up was 18 responses, or about 40% were related to sidewalks and crosswalks.
Yeah.
And another 26% or 12 response transportation and parking. There were 7 responses relating to the accessibility of like indoor spaces, like wanting captioning and for indoors or doorways that they couldn't get through and things like that. And then between 2 and 4 responses each for things related to the park, affordable housing, and then just other. So not a lot of responses for those, but the real main chunk of this is transportation, and it's sidewalks and crosswalks. There's just a lot of them.
Definitely. Yeah. And then, okay, then there were questions. What makes you feel unsafe on Easthampton streets during the day? And then another one for at night, but I combined those two because the responses were similar. So the categories were sidewalks and crosswalks again, too dark at night, poor lighting, bad motorist behavior, police harassment, street harassment, and miscellaneous. And then what types of bullying/harassment have you experienced? So categories are direct threats/insults and other miscellaneous.
while we're on that, Eli, I had told you once before, but I think you forgot. The person that reported the limping, that is Jeff Brown. It's not a different person. It is Jeff Brown. So he's
okay. All right. So it was an anonymous survey. So yeah. So I don't know, but
no, he shared that with me. Yeah, he shared that with me.
Oh, he did.
And
Okay.
I shared it with you, but that was a long time ago. That was like a year ago. So so there's not like another person that's being made fun of limping, to my knowledge.
Okay. But there is a person who's being harassed by police because he walks with a limp in Easthampton.
That's him. Yeah.
Right.
That's
okay.
Yes.
Okay. But I'd still like to preserve his anonymity, right, in public. Yeah.
Yes, I'm just saying there's not a second person.
Yeah, okay. All right. And then what types of bullying / harassment have you experienced? Did I read this one already? Yes, I did. I read that one. Okay. Why did you choose to not report your experience with harassment or discrimination to the police? So the responses were, police wouldn't help not needed, police perpetrated harassment, and miscellaneous. And then please describe how your disability makes you feel. So there we had, okay, tired / exhausted, alone / isolated, weak / incapable, different / abnormal / don't fit in, frustrated, vulnerable / unsafe, and miscellaneous. And those were all the questions that I looked at.
Okay.
Is that, give you any ideas?
What's the next question on Paul's thing?
Okay. So after, let's see. Okay. So we were clearly framed the question at hand. That's what we were doing. And the one after that is assumption. What ideas or values do we take for granted?
So this is an exercise when you talk about assumptions, which is really kind of just the obvious thing. It doesn't always help us, but sometimes it can, just to state out and open. So an obvious thing would be like helping people with disabilities is good for the community. You know, an assumption would be that it's important for the municipality to have a role or to have an understanding of the challenges that, you know, people with disabilities are facing. They're kind of, they help create, I suppose, some of the concepts by which we view this data and these questions. So anyways.
I thought that those were good, especially the second one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like there are assumptions about like kind of factual assumptions and then kind of values assumptions.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, how would that be presented? How would we put that in a presentation?
It may not be something you explicitly put in a presentation. It may.
I think it should. I was just asking you guys.
Probably toward the beginning of a presentation, I would put them. Like, these are the assumptions that we make, you know, and just kind of clearly state it out there.
It feels to me like to be effective with this, we want to come from a place where we're working in tandem with the city, right? Not adversaries trying to point out all their failings or something like that. That just feels to me like that's a more effective way. Is that how people feel?
Yes and no.
Yeah, I agree, yes and no. Because our role is to make sure that the city follows ADA guidelines where appropriate.
Right.
And recommends changes if they don't. So we're not supposed to collaborate with them so much as guide them, I think, in my mind.
No, I would agree. I think I'm going on the old adage of I forget the old adage, but something like you get more with honey than banging people over the head, you know, that which I I botched that.
Up to a
terribly,
point.
but-
Up to a point,
Yeah.
if we ask nicely and they don't do it, then we're supposed to, see what needs to be done to make them do it if it's in violation of the ADA guidelines.
Right.
So we've lost a city councilor, right, that was meeting with us all the time, Lindsay Rothschild. She quit being a city councilor. So that was tough because she was going to be the one that I was going to have to come, like just sort of be on the commission and come every meeting. And we were having a bunch of private meetings with her, but she quit.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like the city isn't a person and it doesn't have feelings that can be hurt, right? So criticizing a city, right? That's how you solve problems. If you first have to identify the problems, right? And that's not the same as criticizing particular officials.
Right. Yep.
So no, Molly, I do agree with you that I don't think we should come at it combative. I'm not great at confrontation. I'll tell you guys right now, like, because this is a job to me, even though it's volunteer, it's still a job to me. Like I'm better at sticking up for other people than myself. So then, I'm trying to think, I don't know all the city councilors super well, anymore. So I can't say like, Omar seems great. Like I feel like they haven't worked with us much, so they're open to it. There was like an issue a while back about straws that became like combative. It stressed me out, lost a lot of sleep. His city councilor wanted us to back up something and like we just didn't have the know-how or same belief system, so it became a lot.
Over straws?
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a city ordinance about straws.
Not having straws.
Yeah, we wrote a letter. So what happened is basically the right, not having straws and using paper ones is great, but then Jeff Brown, he works at Riverside and he works with a lot of people that have issues using their mouth, so they drool a lot or what, like stuff like that, and so the paper straws suck for them, and then it's then they were going to have to always bring a straw with them, or like ask for special straws. There was all this stuff that I would have never ever thought of, and so we wrote that letter. And then there was a city councilor that was really had, I guess, hurt feelings or frustrated because he's the one that passed the no plastic straws anymore. So like he did want to work with us, but then what happened is that I was warned that this person could be extremely combative, and that scared me because I am not, I don't need that. I can't handle that. And they did ask if we could come to their meeting, which I believe Jeff did. And then they wanted us to put them, the city councilor, on our agenda, which I would have had no problem with, except like we already said our piece, which was, unfortunately, some people need plastic straws and paper straws is not the answer across the board. So he wanted to come, but then I was advised by some other people that like we already set our position. So I felt bad not having him come, but also we weren't going to change our position. So I don't know.
Okay. I do remember that ordinance at a passing, and I think there is a loophole in there, probably because of your input, that restaurants still have like plastic straws that you can get upon request.
And that's what I'm talking about, because I would have never known anything about it if it wasn't for Jeff Brown. Like I would have just been like, oh yeah, plastic straws, those are bad for turtles, right?
Sure.
I'd have been sure, but so
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was passed, but then it was repealed the next year, and that was when that counselor got angry.
Okay.
That's what I thought happened.
Yeah, so there's, I don't want to be gossipy, but then there was like an article about the particular person who gets very argumentative. Now he's not done anything to me. But I keep getting warned about him, which scares the living daylights out of me. So
What's he gonna do? What's your fear of what is he gonna do?
so he just harasses, like he calls a million times, he writes a million emails in the middle of the night. I don't know, we argue. I'm not looking to and it's specifically aimed at women, I guess. So he has not done anything to me personally, but I nipped that in the bud. So at the time, it felt like it was an argument between city councilors and they were trying to win us over. This side wanted us to say this and that side. And so I just wrote and said, look, I don't want to be involved in your back and forth personal vendettas against each other. So I'm not going to have you come to the meeting because we already sent a letter. This is where we're at. So even talking to you about it, I feel like I want to throw up.
Oh,
It was very stressful.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, thanks.
Well, I guess, as being a newer member on the commission, I guess what I would like to say is if you're ever going through something like that, and maybe you did at the time, please share it because you can get support from all of us.
Yeah, but there's yes and no. Like I'm the chair. I'm supposed to take care of this type of stuff and not have you guys worrying about stuff that you literally have no control over or say in. But thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I did explain it to Eli at some point, but he wasn't like super involved either because I was the one. There's just like it took up a lot of time and it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, because he called you directly, so I didn't know about it until you told me.
Yeah. So yeah, there was some article in the paper recently. So like that scares me. If the newspaper literally published an article on how abrasive I didn't read the article because I can't handle that either. But it was pointed out to me, like, see, like this is how bad it gets. So like when we say like the city councilors, like they're on our side, like I would assume so, but also who the heck knows at the same time.
Well, I'll say I support what Molly said before about the concept behind this, especially presenting the city council, is that we want to be collaborative. We want to work in tandem with the city. This commission is a part of the city apparatus, and we have to play our role, but understand that like when we talk about things like infrastructure and the sidewalks, I mean, that's not part of what, this commission controls. It's not even necessarily something that the DPW entirely controls. These decisions are being made by all of these different decision makers. And, as far as what this group can do to be informative and say, these are the needs that we have. These are the things that are not being met. These are the things that we're doing a really good job on and let's keep doing a good job on those. Like, I think that's a really important role for this commission to play in those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you go in there guns blazing and say, well, these are, and I've done this before sometimes, gone out in public and been like, look, we have big problems here. What are you doing? People don't tend to respond very well to that. And so I can be a fireball, so it's my own fault sometimes. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. We have met a couple times. Some of us have gone to like the north, because you asked about collaborative stuff earlier with the other cities. So we've gone to I've been to the Holyoke meeting. I've been to the Northampton meeting just once, so each. And then I set up some meetings with other committee chairs online. I have to set up another one because that's not happening. So even that is not necessarily something that came out of the survey, but because came out of the survey answers, but it's coming from doing the survey, like me trying to have other chairs know what's going on and do different things with them. So
I'll be honest with you, Angelique. I am a chair of another committee, and I didn't do the online meeting, and I felt a little bad about it, but I just had so much going on.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No apology. It's volunteer time.
Are
Don't
these,
feel bad.
are
And
these
I'm here.
chairs of other commissions, those kind of chairs? What kind of chairs are we talking about? Other
I
commissions?
think we're the only commission,
Oh,
but
Well,
is there another commission something?
I'm
Well,
the chair of the
committee,
Parks and
commission-
Recreation Commission, and
Oh,
I'm also on the Economic Development and Industrial Commission.
oh, there. Okay.
okay.
But yeah, I think there at one time was a really important difference between a commission and a committee, and that
Oh.
has kind of like they've kind of merged over time, and maybe some of that differentiation was
Right.
lost. But commissions typically have more power. They have more authority to, like, the Parks Commission has power over parks properties, and creating regulations and overseeing a department. And like the EDIC used to have an authority that it doesn't have anymore. And I don't know exactly what the authority was, but when it was formed, it did, and therefore it was a commission.
Okay, our commission has zero power.
Well, I think we don't have power because we don't take it.
No.
There is a state commission on disability which orders every city to have a local commission. This comes from the state. And it defines what we're supposed to be there for and what we're supposed to do. And, there's a long list of things that need to be taken care of by the local commission. And nobody on the city council should stand in the way of our proceeding with these things, because this is coming down from the state and from the federal commission above them.
Why don't you send that out again and we'll talk about it. We'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
One thought I had, maybe a little bit different thought, but what about asking the social worker, I'm forgetting her name, but kind of the city social worker to come to our meeting?
I did. She said she would come every month. So.
Oh, great.
But,
Great.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
good.
So on the subject of assumptions that we're making, I mean, my assumption is that, like, if people in our community are struggling, like, it's our responsibility, right, collectively to deal with that.
Like it's everybody in the town's responsibility to help everybody else.
Yeah, I mean collectively, not individually, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's interesting? Like, I just ran a dance event, and like the conversation, like every month I have a different conversation. Like the first one was consent in the dance community, and the next one was etiquette, and then this month it was accessibility and disabilities and stuff. So I have people come like an hour before the dance event, and like whoever wants to join in on the conversation, because I'm creating like a code of conduct for the Latin dance community. And we went over a bunch of stuff. It was great. And then one of the places that I had put my dance event, these people started to beat up on me. It was so bad because about COVID and stuff. Yeah, so they said like, oh, well, I missed your event, but is it COVID safe? And I said, what do you mean by that? And, and they said, well, does everywhere but wear masks? And I said, no, masks are provided. You can totally wear them if you want. I went into, because like helping one disability like tends to like, then the other disability, there's like another one that it upsets, because some people, the music's too loud. Other people are deaf and literally need the music to be loud to feel it like in their body to be able to dance to it. Or like, it's just all these things. And like, it's hard to make everybody happy at once. And like, these people were coming for me about not wearing masks. And felt like I was trying to answer them so nice. They tried to school me on my own health issues. So I eventually, disclosed that like I'm disabled and I'm like the chair for the COD. So I'm not like, I know that, and then they just went like, I lost the last week last night. They kept going off on me and talking to me about autoimmune things. And I was like, yeah, yep. Thanks for the link. I literally have an autoimmune disease, like appreciate it. So in that respect, like about assumptions, what I find, and this is why I really want to be collaborative with all the COD members, is like when somebody has an illness, right? They're like a pro on their illness and then they're like narrow-minded. Right. So they feel like they're fighting good fight. Oh, masks. And how could you have an event without masks? And I haven't been dancing because you don't have masks. I'm like, I've never met you. There's a million dance events. Why is this firing off at me? And in reality, like we don't know what other people are dealing with, because there's other people that have like COPD and they can't dance with a mask on, and like because you can barely breathe to begin with. Never mind like.
Yeah.
So I was like,
there's no mandate saying people have to wear masks right now. So
it was a shaming, like, how dare you, like, and then they kept mistaking it, and they were like, oh, you claimed you had an accessible event. And I was like, no, I actually didn't. I said the words were, we're going to have a conversation about accessibility and what to do, like, moving forward. So there are a lot of assumptions. People just assume that their illness is the only freaking one. Excuse my French.
Yeah.
Well, it's a tough area because people are sensitive. But you do not need to be taking all this on, Angelique. My goodness. We don't want you
but
losing sleep.
Yeah, but it is important to have conversations, right, to where we take everyone's needs seriously and figure out like how we can meet them all, right?
Oh yeah, that's not what they were doing. I kept inviting them to like, oh, you want to talk on the phone? They were bad. They were, but they were on the younger side. So I've never used the term millennial before or whatever, but like
space. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Angelique. I know it so often happens that people who are trying to do good things for the community end up being punching bags, for somebody who's just trying to take out their anger, their frustration, and venting, and they see you as a target or, whoever, and it sucks. But I hope it doesn't discourage you from doing events like that, because it sounds like a really good thing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I got to recover from it. I did. At one point I had to say, listen, like I am a single, disabled, low income mom who can barely walk half the time. So I'm lucky I can dance at all. And like, if you want to have a conversation, great, but please do not talk down to me. Because I literally care about everybody's feelings. I care about little ants' feelings. I don't even kill ants. Like, I'm like, buddy, you're in the wrong house. Like,
I'm like, invader, you will be destroyed.
All right, what else is on the list? Even though we didn't get through, I just want to make sure we cover all of them, like at least touch on it.
Yeah,
sure. So the next one is information. What data do we have? How accurate and relevant is it? What other data do we need?
I mean, I feel like we need more responses, but then Jeff was like, oh, 60 something is good. Like, I was really hoping hundreds and hundreds and hundreds answered, but because otherwise, if they don't, like, we are missing pertinent information, but.
It does seem like a small sample size to me.
What, Molly?
Well, so again, coming to this party kind of late here. What are we trying to figure out here? Like, are we working to make a presentation to the council? Is that what we're doing? Or are we trying to figure out if our data we have is worth anything, or if we need to start all over? Kind of what's our goal?
So originally, like we didn't talk about anything about doing a presentation. We just wanted to know what the issues were, because some of them might be a quick fix. Some of them could be a misunderstanding. Some of them could be a letter. Like, I just really wanted to know what was going out. In addition, one of my purposes, and like this, I don't know if this will come across the right way, is like sometimes by people just being asked something and writing it down, like then they feel heard. Even if we don't get to ever do anything about it, they filled out something that said, that stupid effing sidewalk, like it makes me so mad. And like now they put it and it went somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
We may not get to do anything about it, but they, so.
Yeah, but I feel like we should make a presentation. I feel like this is something that should be brought to the public's attention and the city council's attention.
Yeah, we just didn't think about that when we made it originally.
Is that kind of what we're doing now, is figuring out how are we going to do that?
Yes, that is the purpose of today's meeting.
Great. Perfect. Thanks.
So I don't know if we're getting there, but hopefully this will come together somehow and we'll have a presentation.
So we have our survey data. Is there other data that the commission has collected or has access to?
No.
Well, a while back, I downloaded and shared with the commission the ADA regulations regarding things that we were dealing with in Easthampton. So, I mean, that possibly should be included with what we give to the city council and the mayor's office.
Are you talking about, you're not talking about school stuff, right?
No, beyond the school, the general ADA regulations. When we were talking about city council meetings and, accommodations and, building access issues and sidewalks and snow clearing, et cetera.
That would be really interesting, especially to tie that to the survey data. If we could say, hey, these ADA regulations are part of the code, they're not being met, and here we have representations of people living in the community who are saying they're having challenges that are related to these regulations that are not being met, would be really powerful.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we even had one person who complained that one of the one of the cash register aisles at Big E was not large enough for a wheelchair to pass.
It's all of them. Not
I thought
one
it was
single
just one.
They're all,
Oh, okay.
yeah. If you go there, you can't barely walk through any of them by yourself. So if you were a little overweight, you're also not making it through very well.
Yeah. Well, except maybe the express aisle, because yeah. So maybe they should move the express aisle, and then they'll have an accessible general aisle.
Yeah.
I mean, the other good aisle is the one on the end by the the ice cream.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys won't mind, but I'm going to forward you guys a report that I came across. I think it's from like 2017 or so. It's done by the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard University. And it is related to housing, but it has a significant part of the report is about disabilities and the increased incidence and just kind of the special challenges that people with disabilities are facing as they get older and older. It really touches on things like how people become isolated, especially as they stop driving and they may live alone, and how that can be dangerous. And also about how you see like such a higher prevalence of things like dementia that start to affect people as they age. And I think that looking at that stuff and then looking at Easthampton, there's a lot of correlations there because we do have a very rapidly aging population here.
Interesting. Yeah. So I don't know if there's any like data at the state or national level that we should be looking at. That would be I don't think there's any other data that like we have as a commission, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Can you read it one more time though?
Yes. Information. What data do we have? How accurate and relevant is it? What other data do we need?
And what's the next one after that?
The next one after that is inferences. What conclusions can we draw based on the information available?
I mean, an inference would be that a lot of people didn't fill out our survey, whether they didn't know about it or it was too much for them.
How was the survey distributed?
Online, just through like Facebook, or if you went on the city website. Eli and I put a couple of flyers at places, so you could use a QR code if you wanted to.
Yeah, and we did have paper surveys available on request.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone requested one.
Yeah, not to my knowledge. So I guess that's why for me, like, I know that we want to get a presentation out, but I also feel like I want to put another survey out, like not a long time from now, because pretty quickly we found that we didn't word things the way we wished we did. I feel like we put it out because it had been years from the start of it. But I'd like to get more information if we can.
Well, those feel like two opposing decisions. Like, do you want to just say, okay, we learned from this, let's do another one? And, like maybe involve the senior center in getting them out, and the social worker, and maybe Riverside, and expanding a little bit more, or
Possibly. Go ahead, Stan.
We should also reach out to the public library and ask them because a lot of people go to the library to use their computers.
But we had a flyer there, but we didn't have.
Well, but I'm saying to actually get the librarians and the workers there involved in suggesting to people that if they're working at one of the library computers for some reason, that they might be interested in filling out the survey.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
and maybe even before we do it, get a little article in the paper saying this is happening. And
We did.
Oh, you did? Okay, great.
We did. Yeah. We had multiple articles, like before we did it and then after.
Great. Oh, good. Good.
I mean, we do have a new librarian who seems to be quite active.
Another one, or the one that came on a couple of years ago?
The one that came from Brooklyn Public about a year or two ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's having, for example, weekly sessions with the social worker coming in. And I asked her if she would be willing to do those on Zoom as well for the people that don't feel comfortable coming into the public library because of COVID. And she said she was going to look into that. So, I mean, she is amenable, and she is, an active person in the community, and she may be a good ally for us.
I've asked her to come to meetings a couple of times, and she never.
Yeah.
She said yeah, and then didn't come or whatever. So that's okay. I'll keep trying.
Well, so do we want to use the current survey as just sort of a springboard to build upon to do a new one, and use that survey in that purpose, or do you feel it's important to still report on this survey? That seems to be the decision to be made.
Hi, Serenity. My tile gone. What were you going to say, Paul?
What I was going to say is that I do feel like the landscape may have changed just because of the pandemic and COVID. I feel like the survey, we might get more responses. I feel like there might be more instances of disabilities from the aging and just from the results of COVID. And that it's more like, I think people are more aware and conscious of of this realm right now because of that. And so I would be very interested to see how a survey taken now would kind of relate or reflect, or how it would compare to a survey that was done pre-COVID.
Yeah, I still feel like we should report on this one though.
Okay.
What kind of report, Eli? Like an in-person, or do you mean something typed up?
No, I mean like what I thought we had been talking about this whole time.
Yes. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if that you were staying with that idea.
Okay, so that's our goal now, and then we can be thinking about, do we want to, maybe one of our conclusions will be, we're going to do another one because now we feel like we have a better sense of how to reach out more or something.
So my only concern with doing the presentation is like I'm just concerned it's not going to happen because it's been a long time, and like we're all volunteers and a lot of us don't have certain expertise, and so I'm just a little like, we just had an hour meeting and we like didn't, we just discussed some things, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about that too. Like, it's been hard to kind of put all these thoughts together and make them kind of coherent.
Which is why, for me, like, I would prefer to do a second survey and then during that time, maybe figure out someone that's, because Kelsey was really good at that stuff, but she's like, oh, I'm available. And then she ends up not being available. And like, so, I'm not sure. I would prefer to work on another survey, and in the meantime, like find somebody that's good at this stuff that can help us do the results of both surveys and present them. But
when was this survey taken? The data that we have now?
Not this October, but the October before.
Okay.
So now it's like a year.
October, 2021.
A year and 3 months old.
Okay.
It kind of feels like Angelique and Eli need to decide. Your slightly different opinions. I'm just willing to help however. I don't know how Stan's feeling. Are there other people on the commission that have strong feelings about this one way or another?
Well, I mean, I can ask.
Yeah, maybe that's a thought. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Because Angelique, you're saying one thing and Eli's saying something different. So,
well, that's because we didn't really discuss this prior. So Eli's right. We just started discussing.
I mean, it's okay. Just I think it needs to get resolved so we know how to move forward.
Right, but it's a group decision. It's not my decision. So.
Okay. I think based on the survey results that we have, there is a presentation that can be made.
Yeah.
Especially because so much of that feedback is related to infrastructure, sidewalks, transportation. I think where it gets weak is when you look at like the things like, oh, why didn't you report a time that you were harassed, to like the police? Because there's just not a lot of responses there. It's a very small number, and the examples are very personal.
Yeah.
But where you find a lot of consensus in the data that we have, even though it's only 60 something responses, it really is around the infrastructure and the accessibility and such. So I think if you wanted to have a report that was really more targeted at the transportation aspect, the infrastructure aspect, because I do think that there's an importance there of being conscious of, like, for example, like the state of sidewalks and the ability for people to, who have wheelchairs or whatnot to get around. And, I do think that there's data there that can back up a presentation that has that scope.
I thought we did do a write-up. Eli, was there a write-up?
I don't think so.
Well, we published the results, and then there was like a thing that went with them. That
we published like a little like introductory paragraph, but that was it.
Oh, maybe that's. I'm getting old now.
Yeah.
Like something just to use a heading for the link to the data, but yeah,
That's what it
I don't think so.
I mean, Paul, you summed that up really well. That sounds like a good focus. And do we feel like, well, I guess it's bringing back to the commission. Do we feel like those of us on the commission can do that? Could we sum up these results and do a little presentation about it?
Eli and I don't have the skill set really to do that because we've discussed this. We would have already done it if we
Okay.
felt like,
I mean, if we're just focused on the transportation stuff, I think that might be easier.
And it's nice and concrete. That's the nice thing about the other stuff was a little more emotional and yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
so is that what you
we
want to
did
try?
get-
Or because I have to go, I can make somebody like the co-host, but I have to go in a few minutes because my kids are home.
we did, Paul, we did get a standing offer from the Disability Commission in Northampton that any of us who want to can join their Zoom meetings when they occur. So I think Angelique has the person's name and, the connection stuff. I attended one meeting. I think she did as well. But if you want to see what other towns are doing, that's one way of doing it.
Yeah, I think maybe we should end this meeting and try to have another one. Does that sound good to everyone?
You're going to put out another survey then? Or another,
What's that?
do another poll of when it's good?
Yeah.
And the focus would be kind of, okay, how could we make a presentation on that? The infrastructure and whatnot. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've like figured out something, right? We've gotten a little more focused and maybe like if we follow up if we don't wait too long to follow up, like we'll make some progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, progress.
Hey.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming. And then Eli and I will talk and we'll send you a little meeting thing.
And Angelique, if you need any ammunition for your next dance event, I just got a message over my cell phone that COVID cases are spiking in the area, and there are now 9 Massachusetts counties that are at high risk of transmission.
So that just goes to what the people were saying to me, that everybody should be wearing masks, and I can't force people to wear masks. So
I understand, but I mean, this is a big change in what's going on with COVID. I mean, a lot of people are thinking that we're done with it, and we are far from done with it.
Yeah, I agree. We are probably far from done with it, unfortunately. All right, thank you guys.
Well, I just want to say
thank you, everyone.
Please don't take things on all by yourself, even if you think being the chair means you're supposed to do that. I don't feel comfortable with you feeling that way. So,
well, thank you. But you guys, it's a volunteer. It's a volunteer thing. So like not everybody has time to, but I will remember that.
I have time, so I will support you if needed.
Okay. Thank you, Molly.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.